Hi, I'm Marlene Gabauer from the Geek and Review, and I'm here with Nikki Shaver from Legal Technology Hub. And Nikki's going to give us a recap of the amazing TLTF Summit. So, Nikki, please tell us your thoughts.
Hi, Marlene. Hi, everyone. So nice to be here. Well, Marlene, you were there as well, so you could
Mhm.
jump in and help me with this recap. For people who don't go to TLTF, I really do think it's one of those events that elicits FOMO because it brings together such an amazing group of people. And really, what's special about it is it cuts out all of the sales and marketing that you get in a lot of other conferences that do make those conferences worthwhile. But for a different level of conversation, TLTF is quite special because almost every conversation you have with somebody is highly worthwhile from a collaboration perspective, a partnership perspective. People are just on the same mind length. They are kind of thinking along the same lines. I think it allows people to open up and really be vulnerable to conversations that they might not be otherwise. This year it was held in Austin, Texas at a lovely golf resort. And one of the other things that was special is we had the entire resort booked out. So it was like being in a legal tech bubble for 2 whole days, which was pretty unique. Some of the things to come out of it, other than the serendipitous conversations that happen all over the place, there are some really interesting conversations about kind of new platforms of legal technology and where that might take us in terms of the legal services of the future, whether technology within legal is going to move beyond what it currently does into actually taking a share of the legal services market, which obviously from a regulatory perspective is challenging at the moment, but a really interesting conversation to have. Also, a conversation I was involved in actually about interoperability and the importance for startups, but also for incumbents to ensure that they're speaking to one another, that context and data is more important than other, and being able to connect data across systems is really, really critical. For me, I also was in the startup room and saw the growth stage for a number of the presentations and pitches that happened. Some really interesting startups emerging that showcase their technologies. And one I thought was interesting was also seeing Winston Weinberg on stage from Harvey talking about three things that are really important for legal tech now and into the future. One being control. So, ensuring security from an ethical walls perspective and a permissioning perspective for the technology that you use. Second, being context again, so that ability for technology systems to really tap into the key data sources that the system requires in order to deliver the best possible output. And three, being collaboration, which is really a theme that we've heard a lot about lately. So, a lot of really interesting discussions to emerge out of that, which I think will give rise to all kinds of ongoing content and debate in the industry. Just a reminder to everyone that on Legal Tech Hub, we do indeed also have an events calendar. If you go to our homepage, legaltechnologyhub.com, there's a drop down under events that will take you to our full events calendar, not just of our events, but all of the legal technology events across the world. So if you want to find your next event to attend, feel free to drop by Legal Tech Hub and find out what's coming up. Thanks, Marlene.
Thank you, Nikki. Welcome to the Geek and Review, the podcast focused on innovative and creative ideas in the legal industry. I'm Marlene Gabauer.
And I'm Greg Lambert. And Marlene, this week I'm really excited because we're going to be hosting a bit of a summit meeting for the Canadian legal publishing world here.
It's an international episode.
We had the U.S. and our potential 51st state, right?
Oh, no, 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 no.
What? No,
Uh-uh.
no, no. Well, we have three guests on. One who's been on before, but two I can't believe we haven't had on before.
Right?
And it's they don't just observe the legal media landscape; they actually really essentially help build the infrastructure that it runs on.
Yeah, so we have Sarah Sutherland,
No,
founder
no,
at
no, go up. just right here.
Oh, you're gonna do it later. I'm sorry. Okay, never mind. Um, now you lost me. Okay.
That's
That's
right.
right. We're joined by the team behind the Canadian Law Blog Awards, better known as the Clawbies, which are headed into their 20th year. But beyond the awards, these three represent the architects of the modern legal web: the builder, the data steward, and the strategist.
And I have to say, just for the record and a little bit of bragging, Three Geeks and a Law Blog won a Clawbie, the Friend of the North category, gosh, 14 years ago in 2011.
Very early on, yeah.
So first we have Steve Matthews. Steve is the founder of STEM Legal and the publisher of Slaw.ca, which is effectively the New York Times of the Canadian legal web, and I've been following for decades. Steve has spent 20 years telling lawyers to own their content rather than renting the space on social media.
Next is Sarah Sutherland, founder at Parallax Information Consulting and the former president and CEO of CanLII and author of the book Legal Data and Information in Practice. Sarah brings the rigorous data perspective, helping us understand not just what lawyers are saying, but how legal information is actually structured and consumed in an era of AI.
And last but not least, rounding out the trio is Jordan Furlong. Jordan is a legal market analyst and forecaster who many of our listeners know from Law 21. Jordan has made a significant shift from the traditional blogging to Substack, leading a migration toward a deeper subscription-based legal commentary. So, Sarah, Steve, Jordan, glad to have all three of you here on the Geek and
Welcome.
Review.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, so Steve, I want to start off with you. For a number of years at STEM Legal, your mantra has been on that, don't build your home on rented land, and so you've warned lawyers that social media platforms could change, the rules could, they could change those rules, or the platform could disappear, they could switch from Twitter to X, all of these things. So, you were saying we need to make sure that we have our own blogs. And so now that we've seen the likes of X causing the law Twitter community to essentially collapse and migrate to some other platforms, including Blue Sky, which is this decentralized platform. I have to ask, do you feel some sense of vindication
I am
on warning everyone not to do this?
Yeah, no, well, maybe I'm totally vindicated. I don't know. Actually, I kind of got bit mixed reactions. I still think lawyers should own the substantive publishing. And Blue Sky is probably a little more of that ephemeral conversational element of publishing. Um, but yeah, the handle owning domain connection is obviously a positive direction for firms and for legal organizations in general, just to own those conversations that they're having. Because I mean, and I say I kind of got mixed reaction because it's kind of sad that we lost what law Twitter was. I mean, as a legal web guy, I've been pulling links and badges off of firm websites and legal organizations probably for a year and a half now.
Uh,
Yeah, so it's from firms, associations, legal organizations, Vault, nobody wants anything to do with it right now. So there's definitely like this mass exodus, and one of two things is kind of happening in the fallout there. Either these accounts are converting over to something like Blue Sky, or they're maybe Mastodon or Threads. There's a little bit of short form movement over there as well. But the other kind of more concerning point is that for firms who have invested and actually built an audience and connected there with people, some of those firms are actually just removing the icons, shutting the accounts, and they're done. So some of those conversations are finished. Um, so, is there value in, or how valuable are those ephemeral conversations? I think in 100 years, they're not at all. But right now, and we've all in this room here have a connection to legal knowledge management over the years and organizational history. We kind of want to capture where we've been. So yeah, no, I think some of those firms have lost a little bit, and the open web is kind of a big part of that.
Yeah, Steve, just to follow up a little bit on that, you know, when it was still Twitter, but was making its way to X, you could kind of feel that momentum of change, that people were not happy with what the platform was becoming. And we used to say, well, if you could weed your garden so that you're only dealing with the people that you want to deal with. Do you think that was an option, or did it just become so poisoned that everyone just felt like it was better to make a clean break?
I mean, I think that we all honestly with ourselves, we tried. There is a tab exclusively for people who you follow. So you can weed the garden as much as you want. But the default tab, of course, is what the algorithm wanted you to see. And the algorithm shifted. The algorithm shifted you to things that you had in some cases, had no interest in seeing whatsoever, ever. So it became a hostile environment for a lot of organizations, and they also you don't want to have your business presence connected with some of the stuff that's on Twitter these days. So like you're just going to disconnect your business altogether. That's just the prudent decision.
Just a quick around the horn. Did anyone completely give it up, or do you still have your Twitter handle? You're just not using it. Jordan, do you?
For myself, I hung on as long as I could. I really did. My mantra to myself was, I was here before Elon, and I'll be here after he's gone. That was my fervent hope. But I think after the 2020 election, 2024 election, when it became clear that Elon was going to play a part in the White House and that X was going to be part of whatever swath of destruction they were going to undertake there. It's like, no, I just can't. I don't want, because I had a lot of data there. I had years and years worth of tweets and conversations and so forth. And I just thought, no, I'm not giving you that. So I basically burned it. I deleted the whole thing, moved over to Blue Sky, dropped, I don't know, like I had something like 16,000 followers. I've got maybe a couple of thousand now at Blue Sky,
Jordan,
but
you ported your presence off of Twitter, and you got a service to bring it over to Blue Sky.
yeah,
That seemed like a smart move at the time. I did not. I got lazy and said, "Hey, shift! I'm moving to the new platform.
Yeah,
Here's a link
let's
to the
start
new
all over.
platform. Well, I'm done."
yeah. Well, and it's funny, right? Because I did port over all the old tweets but and the weirdest thing is every so often, like just this morning, I get a little notification. Someone has liked your Blue Sky, your blue, whatever they're calling it there. And it was something I put it back in like 2013, right? And the person doing it, and I clicked through to their account and said, "Oh no, I don't want you following me." So so it's one of those, really, and you're right. I mean, there was a real attraction to it, saying, I don't want to lose all of that. But it's kind of like, it's like when you open up that box of photos you've been keeping for years and years in the basement, and you look at it, and it's like, not really. I don't really need it as much as I thought I did.
Yeah, but I just keep mine to keep the Adam Lambert fans, the Glamberts, from having it. So I check in every once in a while just to sign on so that I'm there and they don't deactivate it. Sarah, do you still have yours?
I deleted it.
Uh,
I
yeah,
still
well,
have mine. Just, for weather calamities.
Mm.
So it's like if something happens, it's like that seems to still be the fastest place that people will talk about.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So, Jordan, I mean, you've just been talking about like you had been, a central voice in this sort of online town square for a long time. But you've recently written about the migration of Intellect from these public feeds to the inbox via Substack. Why did you make that shift? Is the era of the blog or, tweets or blues or whatever, and as a public conversation, is that over, replaced more by, the intimacy of a newsletter? We
I
going
think
old school again?
gone old school. Everything old is new again. I kind of think it might be. I mean, uh, I think there's probably three reasons why I shifted over. So just by way of background, so I began blogging in January 2008, and I was not the first by any means. There was many folks there still that have been around for ages. Greg, we were talking earlier. I was digging through some of the old archives in this area, and I found Dennis Kennedy's first blog awards. Well, that was 2004. So even back then, there was enough of a legal blogging ecosystem you could have awards, right? Which was, really cool. So I began in 2008, took a hiatus around 2015, but I really blogged continuously till 2023. But what I found was I really tapered off near the end. And I thought I need to kind of revitalize this. And I think I moved to newsletters for three reasons. One was that I really wanted to get back to which sounds weird to say, but back to the pressure of expectations of,
Mm.
and so forth. I ran a legal magazine for 10 years, and you learn to take deadlines seriously, right? People expect something from you at a certain time. I said to the person who replaced me, I said, you know what? The word periodical includes periodic because they expect it on time. So, and I kind of I kind of lost that discipline a little bit. And I sort of thought, if I've got people who are expecting to hear from me on a regular basis, that will motivate me to be more consistent. And that has proved to be the case. I think a second part of it, and this kind of goes to your question around like the town square. I think, and blogging really is like the town square in a lot of ways, but you're also kind of just standing on a corner shouting, and trying to get it's open broadcast to anybody. And I was looking for something. I mean, you said more intimate, and I think that's correct. I was looking for the people who were actually interested in the same stuff I was, and I wanted to have a kind of like. I talk to law students a fair bit, and I say, you know what? When you get out there into the profession, you got to find your people because they're out there. The people who are right for you, the communities that are right for you are out there. You got to go find them. And it was kind of the same thing for me on the writing. There was stuff that I cared about. I wanted to find people who also cared about that, and so that was a factor. And a third one, more distant for me, but it was a consideration at least. Substack in particular, where I wound up, also gave you the monetization option. If you wanted to, you could charge a subscription, annually or monthly or quarterly, whatever you want to do it, for your work. And I didn't think I would, and in the end, I haven't. It's what I do there is still free, basically because I'm interested in getting the ideas out there, and it leads to work being hired to like speak or whatever. But I think for a lot of people, that's an attractive option as well. Uh, so to go back to the original question you asked 5 minutes ago, I fear maybe it is. I fear blogging may have been a moment in time. And I think, Steve, you mentioned like the open web, right? That was a wonderful place and a wonderful time. But it's like a lot of things over the last 5-10 years. I think we've kind of lost that. And I suspect as a result, we've gone into these, instead of we're not in the town square, we're kind of in our living room with, 200 of our closest friends and having conversations in there.
Yeah, I always put my finger back on March 2012 when Google shut down Google Reader as the end of the open web, where they decided you could no longer decide what it is you wanted to read. The algorithm was going to decide what you wanted to read. So,
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
actually, I want to kind of pitch something that Steve has said against what you're doing now, Jordan, and that is, are you now building on rented land? Are you also subject if Substack gets bought by, a
Mhm.
billionaire who decides to turn it into a political platform? Are you back to step one of finding something else again?
I might very well be. I mean, the advantage of having everything written down is that it's easy to download and to hold on to, and the
And
difference
you've had experience
between
at migrating it off of one platform to the other, so you could Do it
Yeah,
again.
exactly. But the difference as well is like Twitter, and Steve, you talk about the ephemeral nature of it. Twitter really was just kind of like, oh, thought, observation, link, etc. But the stuff I'm doing on my newsletter, stuff I did to the blog, that was more, short, medium, long form writing. And that's something that, it is easier. That has, I think, a bit more longer term value that I can pull down. But in the end, I don't think there's any right answer as to, is it better to have your own site, yourname.com, and you're putting yourself up there, or someplace on Substack. There's pros and cons to it. Substack for me, and the same is true of any other newsletter platform, I think. It handles all of the work for you, right?
Yeah.
It all you have to do is you write, you press a button, and boom, everything is taken care of. And boy, do I appreciate that at my age, that I don't have to go and learn something new. But yeah.
I'm wondering, is there also consideration that, on Substack, you're somewhat like out of the fray as opposed to sort of a Twitter format where it's, you feel like you have to kind of keep responding, keep responding, keep responding.
Yeah, I think for sure. Because you can have comments obviously on Substack posts, and I get, and I have some good conversations there. But the thing of it is that we talk about that heyday of law Twitter, and it was really good. It's not to say that can't come again at some point if there is something along those lines that surfaces. I just think we're in such a fragmented time right now that it just makes it difficult. I think everybody is kind of looking for shelter in a storm,
Yeah.
and I suspect that's why we're in this siloed period. Well, who knows if it'll last longer, but that's, I think, where we're at right now.
I would say what Jordan's doing on Substack is probably a lot closer to what we were doing early day blogging any event, because that middle range discourse writing is certainly being captured. There's a little more relationship connections between Substackers, I would guess, than there would be what you would find on Twitter or even Blue Sky. So it is a little more conversational, but a little more substantive, and you have a little more choice in who you're connecting with and what you're reading. So, there's certainly an argument there. I mean, if we're talking about where blogging is going, really, what it is self-publishing and controlling your self-publishing in no matter what platform you use. Even if you use a hosted blog, or you decide to self-publish on a WordPress website and own all of the pieces, you're still at the whim of somebody along the way. Uh, so the choice is, do you have the best you can control over the content that you're publishing? Can you barter it? Can you do something with it, republish? Can you take it to a magazine in your industry and say, hey, I've got a great piece that I wrote, or you can submit original material and then republish back on your blog afterwards. Having a self-publishing presence, whether you call it a blog or not, really doesn't matter. Like, at the end of the day, you just need to have a little bit of control of who you are online.
Yeah. It is nice though to push a button and then also to get paid. So
It's the
Push a
it's the
button,
perfect.
get paid. Push a button, get
Exactly.
paid.
It's
Yeah.
21st century dream job. Yeah.
All right. Well, Sarah, let's bring you back into the conversation here. And we are now almost 20 minutes into the conversation, and we're just now going to talk about AI. So it
Well
waited this
done.
long. Um, so Sarah, you coined a phrase that I really liked, and that was "Law's Eternal September," where you argued that a constant influx of new technologies, and the most recent being obviously generative AI, prevents the legal system from ever really settling into kind of the stable equilibrium. I think as a law librarian, I feel like we also do the same thing. We're never in a stable equilibrium. So let me ask, in a world where generative AI can literally generate infinite plausible sounding text, legal text, what does the role of a legal publisher shift from like creation to like verification now? What's our role now?
I think I think the publishers will continue to have both those roles, and they have, it's not really a new thing, though the balance might shift. Um, So publishers will definitely continue to work on content creation. This could be including automated content, which isn't really new. There's certainly been um, things like automated classification or automated development of annotated codes or statutes by pulling in snippets of citing documents. Um, these things have been around for many years and they will continue to be. So large language models have kind of further facilitated this. And, um, we're going to have things like more automated summaries. Like I would like
Yeah.
to kind of carve out space for human writers and editors because I think that the human beings bring essential judgment and elements. But in some cases, some products which used to be very labor intensive don't have to be anymore, and maybe and maybe they're a little bit lower stakes in terms of what they're being used for. There's always been errors in classification, whether you have human beings doing that work, you have highly trained people, or if you have an automated system. And like, how is it the end of the world if you don't get every single case, or if a case is miscategorized? And maybe in that case, having a conversation where you can just report issues to the publisher and they can use it to train their system better, maybe that's enough. Um, but I think that the work of verification will also continue. So, um, but
I think
the work of
it's
human
critical.
authors also needs to be verified. It's
Yeah. Well,
both
I can give
these
you a
tasks are
good
central.
example here of what we're working on right now, and that is, I obviously lean on AI to help me prep for these interviews, and luckily I had an editor come in, that being Sarah, come in and point out, hey, I no longer work at this place. I now work over here. It's like, oops. So yeah, definitely, so it's not just hallucinations, it's, out of date information.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of the same things that we run into as humans, but at a speed that it is just, just amazing.
But I mean,
So,
we have to have a non-AI source to check AI, and it's just critical that you have humans sort of doing that. I mean, we're asking people to double check their work that's done there, so they have to have some place that's not that to go to.
yeah. So I'll just keep sending my scripts to Sarah and let her review those.
There you go.
My regular guest spot. Um, I think that what we're talking about with blogging though is that blogging was a big initiative that helped us all kind of escape some of that verification role that the publishers had that restricted access to certain people, and you could take responsibility for your own self. I think of my ability to write to Simon Fodden, who was the founder of Slaw and the original editor, and ask to be a columnist in 2013, and that has been a huge benefit to my career. You know, whether everybody wants to build their career by writing it is kind of a different matter. If you don't like it, it's a lot of work for some, like content creation is a lot of work for something if you don't kind of enjoy it. So, I've been writing, I'm going to say a number of columns that approaches but does not reach 6 since 2013. And, um, you know, the dynamics of authority and approval the publishers drive will continue to be important. But the balance is going to change.
Yeah.
Sarah, I just want to say that's a really great point about how, and I had actually kind of forgotten this. When we all began blogging, it was actually so liberating because you didn't need to be able to go. I mean, again, like I said, I ran a legal magazine for about 10 years, and we would constantly get submissions from lawyers saying, I want to write this, I want to write that, which of course they would, right? Because they want to get published. But there were so few vehicles and so few distribution points for information. And then blogging came along, and now we've got hundreds, we got thousands of them. And some of them are bad, obviously, but some of them turned out to be exceptional. But it was a real it was a lowering, if not a demolishing, in a lot of ways, of the barriers that that the publishing industry generally had created. And I think on balance, and God knows we see enough evidence out there on the con side, but on balance, I think it was a huge pro. I think it was a great thing to have happen.
So, Jordan, you mentioned in your email to us that you, Steve, and Sarah characterized 2026 and the upcoming Clawbies as the year of the truth teller.
Yes, yeah.
What does that mean practically for a lawyer trying
What
to
do you
build
mean by that, Jordan?
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, exactly. Well,
somebody trying to build a brand. What does that mean?
Yeah. So I wrote that around this time last year, when we were all still kind of dealing with the ramifications of the election results in the United States, and it wasn't the happiest time, and I had a lot of concern, and some of that I think has turned out to be fairly justified, that we were going to, among other things, experience a real wave of disinformation, misinformation, and not just for purely political purposes, but we could already see what that AI was not, as we've been talking about, is not as reliable as you would like it to be. And I really thought there's a dual role here for lawyers, in terms of intentionally framing yourself as someone, as a reliable, steadfast source of accuracy, of truth. Like we hear a lot about, and we've all come across this, clients, especially, people talk about, I want to get more transparency into your billing, I want to get transparency into what you're doing. And transparency is just another way of saying, I want you to be straight with me, just tell me what's going on. And I think that there's a very strong societal role for lawyers as truth tellers right now. I mean, it's not exclusive to us, of course. Anybody can do it, but I think it's incumbent upon us, and there's an extra responsibility, obligation, opportunity that we have to be able to stand up to, as I've written elsewhere, to be citizen lawyers, right? And what does a citizen do? The citizen stands up for their community, and they stand up for what's right. And those are phrases that a lot of people in this profession like to roll their eyes at, but that's one of the reasons I got involved. I think most of us got involved in the law. So I think that is important in of itself. But in terms of promoting your practice or standing out, well, look, I mean, I think the days when we published for marketing, I think it's not that it's not still accurate, but it's just so difficult. As Steve, you testify to this. It's so difficult to project a signal through all the noise and the volume out there. So what, your latest analysis of this case, or of this bill, okay, that's great, but there's 150 other ones out there at the same time, and AI wrote 100 of them. So if you want to really stand out, I think you stand out for the things that people are going to want to hire lawyers for, which is, you are trustworthy, you are well informed, you are concerned for your community, you are interested in giving people the best information they can to make the best decisions they can. You are acting in your client's best interest, in the community's best interests, and so forth. And AI is going to do a lot of the legal work in future. It's going to, answer legal questions, and it's going to create legal documents and instruments and so forth. There's a lot of the task performance that lawyers have traditionally done is going to shift over to the machine. So what is left for us is going to be that the personal, relationship-based, higher level. Again, I said I was talking to law students. I finished off one presentation the other day saying, in the future, what you know as a lawyer and what you can do as a lawyer aren't going to be as important as who you are as a person, as a citizen, as a lawyer. That's where people are going to find the most value in you, and that's what's going to generate the best, most satisfying, fulfilling relationships. So
Yeah, I'd say we also have to recognize that there's an ebb and flow here, and that we look at all what's going on internet circles of disinformation, but lawyers have a role just like doctors. You see a lot of people in the medical profession who are suddenly, with respect to vaccines, are coming out and saying, well, here's what the studies actually say, and I'm going to walk you through it point by point. All of a sudden, authority has some value. And so when we talk about truth tellers and blogging, what we're talking about is lawyers who are relying on their expertise, their knowledge in the domain, and showcasing that. And not only does that showcase well for them for general input into societal conversations, but it also reflects back on their practice at the end of the day. So lawyers have a role in public conversation, as you just said, and it's really critical. I mean, that's what we want to recognize when we're out there hunting for new blogs or new content pieces. Who's out there really connecting with audiences? Who's out there doing public legal education from a blogging platform or for a podcast platform or what have you? Who's out there really educating people and bringing the authority back into the conversation?
Steve, I just want to jump on that because I could not agree more, and it really links back to something Sarah was talking about in terms of the ability to multiply and maybe democratize the opportunity to provide accurate information. Because you're absolutely right, that is an obligation, like for a doctor or a medical professional or anybody in healthcare to be able to go out there and say these things is essential. Because you look at the website right now of the Center for Disease Control, which is basically saying, you can vaccinate your child against various diseases if you feel like it, no biggie, right? So right, because like a few years ago we were like, oh, disinformation, that's some dude in a basement in Moscow, filtering stuff onto the internet. No, it's the actual government doing this stuff. So I come back to, it's not just essential, it's urgent. This is a role we've got to play as if we're going to justify our positions as professionals in our society, we got to step up on this one in particular.
Yeah. Sarah, I'm curious, when you talk to people that either you think would make good writers or are coming to you saying that, they think that they're good writers and need a platform. I mean, how do you approach it, now? Because in 2008, it was easy, hey, go on Blogger, get a free thing, or, 2017, it was, go on Anchor and get a free podcast. And if this sounds like very specific, that's because that's what I did. Uh, but in 2026, what advice do you give people that want to kind of enter the foray now?
I kind of advise to really think about whether it's something you want to do, because, like, sometimes people just have a particular thing they want to say. And in that case, submit it to an online magazine, submit it um, to another publication. Slaw takes guest posts. You can do something like this and get out your singular thing. And I think that that's a really great thing to do. Um, if people just want to do it as a way to develop influence without actually liking the process of writing, then I suggest that maybe they might like to try something else, just because it's a
Have you
Very
lot
thought
of
about bringing
politely.
a dog?
it's a lot of work before you get anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you don't enjoy it, it's not necessarily the greatest return on your investment of time. Um, I personally have a preference that if you're not going to put in the full investment to really build an audience in a really kind of dedicated way, to go with a different, like, someone else's platform. I find a blog, when I've had one in the past, felt like a horrible hamster wheel that I couldn't get off.
Yeah.
And I am so relieved that I only have to come up with up to 6 posts per year, because I
Yeah.
just don't want to write that much. I don't enjoy it. And so Slaw has been
Wow.
a great option for me.
Well, yeah, and
You
Sarah,
understand? all the lazy writers.
But Basari, I think you make a really good point too, because it's also a question of what's going to make sense for the person themselves. So for some people, writing is a chore. It is oh my God, I got to write something else. Whereas, put them on a podcast, let them talk, they're fine, right? Or do, if it's like, I want to say something in person for 90 seconds. Well, there's a thing here called TikTok and it's perfect for you. So, right. And Steve, that's kind of why we made the decision a few years back to expand the Clawbies to go past blogs and written work generally. We were like, multimedia. Listen, we don't really care. You want to do the, the cliche of the interpretive dance to communicate your point? You go right ahead. If you've got an audience and you're making an impact, yeah, we'll cover that. We'll reward that. So it really is find the right match for you to tell your story, but you need to have a story to tell. If you don't have a story to tell, it's absolutely a hamster wheel for sure.
Yeah, see that leads perfectly. And so the Clawbies in 2026, what is it that you're looking for? What's kind of the spectrum of publications or output that qualifies now for a Clawbie?
Right. I mean, what Jordan said is kind of a big part of it. We're looking for quality voices, and we really don't care how you put it out there. We've last year, I think we had a couple TikToks on our awards. I think we're looking, and we went through Blue Sky, and we started looking for people who were doing something different. We found a lawyer who was doing deep dives into a particular type of case law and annotating the decisions as they came off a court of appeal. We're looking for people who are just looking for a different voice and different take. And we see our job as really as diggers of new people, new content. If you read the Clawbies year over year, you would notice that we're not picking the same people all the time. We rarely have we given an award twice.
I
We
know
try
we
to
only
be,
won it once.
well,
Never again.
What's up with that?
Yeah, we do have a little freedom with the award categories. We kind of realign them every year, and we hand them out pretty freely. So a private email in the background to Jordan, and all of a sudden you got a Clawbie award.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Wink, wink. Got it.
Yeah, no. I think we're just kind of digging for those good voices and those people that we want to, if you're doing something authentic, we talked a lot about AI. Jordan and Sarah and I had a great conversation about how the tool is almost recognizable. It dances when you're in your head when you're reading an AI based post, and it's very recognizable. So digging people who dig down into their internal dialogue and let it and express it becomes very obvious when we're reading, or
Yeah.
if we're listening or what have you, watching the video, these types of things really become evident.
And Steve, especially the fact that we're Canadian, right? I mean, we've got a market, a fraction the size of the U.S., especially when it comes to lawyers and legal professionals. I mean, the ABA for about 10, 12 years had its blog 100,
Yeah.
and it wasn't hard for them to fill it. They had lots and lots of space and opportunities. So, by the way, Greg, this is why we have never had a repeat winner in the Friend of the North category because there's just so many of you down there, and
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 we're all
they're all
friends.
really good. But what it really also makes it more possible to do exactly what Steve says is to encourage those new voices. I mean, I don't want to speak for Steve and Sarah, but for me, one of the most rewarding aspects and one of the most rewarding categories is new voices, the new blog, the new this, the new whatever. Someone who, like, probably wasn't even in law school when the Clawbie started. Maybe they were, I don't know, maybe they were in kindergarten. I don't know, but they're out there and they're saying, look at look at the track record, look at the people who've come before me. I can do that too. And I think a big part of what we want to do is just to encourage people. Yeah, you actually, if you really want to, you actually can, and you should.
Yeah, Steve, just to make you feel older, the people that were born in 2004 are now entering law school. So just
Ooh, thank you. Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah.
Yes, I want to
Mission
keep going
accomplished.
on this international theme because I understand that the Clawbies are going to become more. The Clawbies are going to become more international this year. So tell us about that, like it, because the Clawbies kind of have a very unique culture to them. They're very collaborative, and how are you gonna kind of export that to a more international legal tech scene without sort of losing what makes the award special? Also, I want to know what the humble Canadian rule is.
Oh, I can explain the humble Canadian rule. That is our way to avoid self-promotion. So we ask anybody who's nominating in the process to give us between 1 and 3 blogs. Tell me what you're reading, or what you're watching, what's inspired you and had a connection to your practice. And in turn, we will secretly wink, wink, nudge, nudge, have a look at what you're writing and you're publishing, and we will quietly give that consideration for an award too. In fact, if you obey that little rule strictly, I think we normally give the nominator quite a rigorous look before we start choosing award categories.
All right, I'm drafting that email
I was going
now.
to say, we're writing this down right now.
And I think from the international side, I mean, part of it too is this is the 20th anniversary, right? It's a pretty big deal in a lot of ways. And the Clawbies really, I mean, we're kind of the last survivor, aren't we, Steve? Right, in a lot of ways, right? Because the bloggies, Dennis doesn't do the bloggies anymore, and the blog 100 long since
Right.
it passes
And
mortal
I mean,
coil.
that's obviously why we expanded our look into all these different platforms, because the concept of a lawyer voice or a legal librarian's voice in online hasn't changed. We've got some consistency in who we're looking at year over year. It's how they're expressing themselves. Of course, that's going to change. People don't want to do the same thing. 3 Geeks and a Law blog was originally all text. So here we are having a nice video conversation, and so people want to expand their professional presence. So yeah, we're going to always have a deeper look. And how do we maintain that? I think we just keep kind of doing what we're doing. We try to look for people who are doing an altruistic publication that is connecting with an audience. It doesn't have to be exciting. It can be, ethics, or it could be something that is perhaps not considered an exciting conversation. But if the conversation is connecting with an audience, we can see that. And that's what we're trying to shine a light on, those people who are, out there doing the good work and putting their time in, and they should be rewarded and either have their audience expanded, or just the fact that we want to give them a pat on the back.
All right. Any TikTok nominees this year? I'm sure, right?
Probably.
We may have to dig and do a couple of searches,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Once we stop recording, I can show you my TikTok dance.
Excellent.
All right. Bonus. Yeah.
All right. Well, before we wrap up and go to our crystal ball question, it would be a shame to have the brain power that we have with the 3 of you and how you guys keep up with the market. So, what are some of your go-to resources that kind of help you stay up to date with the things that you're interested in? Steve, I'm going to start with you if you don't mind.
Well, I mean, my role in Slaw basically means that I'm reading 60 columns every month to see who's doing what.
So you just set it up where they just feed you the
Yeah,
information.
I'm just
That's
getting
very
emails in my
convenient.
inbox, and plus they task me with things to assemble their columns with, and photos and stuff. But
You're a
no, yeah,
walking
so
RSS feed.
there is a one-off connection of just having those submissions come in, and people who are experts in their field telling me, what the trends are in the legal industry. So that helps me an awful lot. I would say Substack is probably, I read a lot of Substacks. And while we talked about Google Reader the other day, my Google Reader has not been active in over a decade. And that's a shame, because I really miss, even if I was able to go through maybe 120 feeds in a matter of an hour, and at least if I'm capturing headlines, I may not read everything, but I knew a lot of what people were writing during that period. It's really a shame that's been lost.
Yeah, I agree. Sarah, what about you?
I still have Feedly, so I technically
All
do have
right.
the RSS
Wow.
feeds.
Nice.
I can get my news old school. Um, but a lot of what I do is I'm more interested in the pure technology side, especially and the data analytics. I'm more interested in that more abstract side of the legal industry. And so I actually started a PhD this year, and so
Yay,
I
congratulations.
look at the academic literature, and so I tend to look at like information about legal computing. And honestly, none of the things that are happening right now are at all surprising if anybody's been paying attention to where research has been going over the last um, several years. And so it is a little bit of a crystal ball if you want to look at what people
Well,
are
hold
researching
that
and
because
what
we're
will
going
be
to ask you that
commercialized.
question in a minute.
Hmm.
And Jordan, how about you? Besides your Substack, how else do you keep up with what's going on?
Well, it's funny actually because it's kind of a theme emerging here because for me there's like the legal and the non-legal, and the non-legal for me is like so I need to keep up with AI because that's just so much happening there, but I've also like there's a geopolitical slant to a lot of the stuff that I write and stuff that's taking place outside of the borders of both our countries. So I subscribe to a number of Substacks. I've got subscriptions to magazines like or newspapers like the Atlantic and the Financial Times and so forth. I've got a lot of stuff coming in from outside the law, which is really important because it's really easy to get kind of into the bubble. But for the legal stuff, and it's funny that this platform has not come up yet in our conversation, but LinkedIn actually has turned out to be a really useful source for me because there are people whose stuff always comes up on a regular basis in my LinkedIn feed, and it's like, oh, excellent! I get like someone like Kat Moon or someone like Nikki Shaver or someone like, and I'm going to think of all the names and Tom Martin, people I'm sure if they give me a moment, I could get 20 names, but right in the
Greg
moment, I'm going
Lambert,
to freeze up.
Marlene
Marlon
Daybell.
And
Gay
Greg
Bauer.
Lambert, exactly. This the leaders but yeah, I mean, and the weird thing is, LinkedIn. That's kind of where a lot of these conversations have migrated. I have great conversations back and forth on LinkedIn, even though it is absolutely not optimized for that at all. It's it's like it's not fit for purpose, but that's what people are using it for. So actually I find um the more I can curate my LinkedIn feed, which is really hard to do because again, it's not optimized for that. That's where I'm finding a lot of not just really breaking news and developments, but a lot of great insights as well.
Well, now it's time for the crystal ball questions. So I'm going to ask each of you to look into your crystal ball, for, the end of 2025, maybe in the next year or so. Where is sort of legal, publishing going? Where do you think it's going to end up? Steve, I'll start with you.
Boy, I think we're going to transition into a period where eh, the the social conversations are going to change. Like they're going to slow. They're going to have to be a little more in depth than what they are currently. A lot of it's kind of again with that shining a light back on yourself, that self promotional concept. I think you'll have to see a lot more of the conversations move to an era where they're rounding up and gathering the discussions of others and connecting them. If we don't see more conversation, the platforms just aren't going to survive. One of the we were just talking about methods of management. One of the things that I'm doing, I right from the get go on Blue Sky that I should have done years ago on Twitter, is manage my conversations and my watch lists. And so I'm using the list functionality I don't even have to subscribe or follow people. I can just simply add them to a list, and I can watch some very niche topics that way and see what's going on just by identifying 25 experts, putting them into a designated list and tracking what's going on in that particular community. And I think the more time I invest in something like that, the more value I'm going to get at the end of the day.
Sarah.
I think that we're going to have this kind of continued pressure of centralization through, we have these kind of growth of these enormous legal publishers slash software companies. And so we have, Thomson and LexisNexis, and now we have Clio, which is just And I'll be very interested because it seems to me that Thomson and LexisNexis have been wanting to move into the, the practice management or the practice software space for
Everybody's
over a
moving into
decade.
Mm-hmm.
And Clio has already really kind of perfected that angle. And so they're moving into publishing. And so I'm curious how that will go. But I think that there's also going to continue to be a desire for more authentic voices. There's, I've been so frustrated with LinkedIn. We were just talking about it in the last week because it's so garbagey now. Like it's really not improving your reputation or your credibility if you're putting out content that's ostensibly yours but is kind of junky. And when you start writing, your writing's not going to be the best, and I don't think that that's necessarily a terrible thing. Everybody learns and goes somewhere, but um not being careful about what you're putting out and putting out this stuff that's just not up to a kind of community standard, I think is going to be a risk for people. And I think it's a mistake to assume that something like Substack can't be a vehicle for re-centralization. I haven't used it, but I have heard that it's a lot less easy to migrate away from than other newsletter platforms like MailChimp or whatever systems people have been using. Um, blogging is very distributed. And I don't know. It'll be very interesting. There's a lot of people who are trying to build their own little turf and get everybody to play and make their money there.
I'm just going to vibe code my own platform now.
All right, Jordan,
Yeah.
bring us home.
Yeah, and I think I'm in broad agreement with both Steve and Sarah on that. I mentioned earlier that it's a fragmented, fractionalized landscape out there because it's a fragmented world in a lot of ways, and we're all kind of like getting broken down into our own little silos and so forth. And what I can see happening a few years down the road, we've got a lot of bad stuff to get through yet, but a few years down the road, I think there is going to be a coalescing, an unfragmentation and a recoalescing where people are going, this desire for clarity and reliability and accuracy is going to become palpable. And people will say, we want to get back to a time where we could look at something and feel we were getting the straight goods. I mean, at the start, Greg, you referred to like the New York Times of law publishing, and 10 years ago, 5 years ago, that was a huge compliment, and today it's like, I don't know.
Take it as a compliment. I don't know.
No, for sure. But like so many of the old institutions just don't have the same oomph to them that they used to. So I think, but people are looking for that. It used to be like if you saw it in this location from this source, you could trust it. And it's not asking too much, I don't think, for there to be a source like that. And right now, I think we're at the nadir, right? When again, you literally can't trust what the government's telling you on its official websites. Yeah, this is about as bad as it gets. But to Sarah's point, I can absolutely see something recoalescing on a place like Substack, where you might have 10 different experts all in their areas, and you go to them and say, hey, you know what 10 experts all put together equals? A new service. And you can kind of, if you could find ways, can we bundle them together? Because that's all newspapers or magazines have ever been, right? The bundling of disparate sources and disparate benefits and values, and saying you can build a truly large and diverse and diversified audience this way. I think that it's gonna I understand why we have gotten so fractionalized down to the last item, but I think we absolutely need, I don't think the demand has materialized yet, but we need that sense of recombination back to a community, back to a sense of us, not just a whole bunch of individual me's. And I think that that's one way in which that might be manifested a few years down the road.
All right. Well, Sarah Sutherland, Steve Matthews, and Jordan Furlong, thank you very much for coming on and having this panel discussion with us today. This has been great.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
having us.
Thank you, Bob.
And thanks to all of you, our listeners, for taking the time to listen to the Geek and Review podcast. If you enjoy the show, please share it with a colleague. We'd love to hear from you on LinkedIn and I guess we should say Blue Sky and TikTok too.
Sarah, Steve, and Jordan, and Sarah, I'll start with you. For listeners who want to learn more about the Clawbies or follow you or your work, Sarah, where's the best place for them to go?
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active there. I'm also on Blue Sky at Parallax Info, and I'm, generally around online. So please feel free to check me out.
And Jordan?
Stack, honestly, it's kind of headquarters to me these days. So I have various other little places you can find me, but start with Substack. You'll figure out pretty quickly if I'm worth listening to after a few minutes there.
And Steve, tell us about the Clawbies first, and then where to learn more about it.
Okay. Well, first of all, Clawbies.ca, CLAWBIES, and we're going to make two announcements. One on December 1st, we open up our nomination period. We get 15 days worth of people writing on various social media. We track the Clawbies 2025 hashtag on both LinkedIn and on Blue Sky. And then we will go quiet around December 15th, and then we announce the winners on December 31st.
Steve came up with a great. Steve had a great tagline years ago, which we use every year. He says, "We may not be the best awards out there, but we're definitely the last."
The last.
Awesome.
And you can find me on Slaw.ca and also on Blue Sky.
And as always, the music you hear is from Jerry David DeSica. Thank you, Jerry.
All right. Thanks, Jerry. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.